and welcome to the Hero Report podcast. My name is Ari Cohen. I am a professor of political science at the University of Nebraska. And with me, as always, my good friend Matt Langdon of the Hero Construction Company in Michigan. Matt, it's been a very long time. I'm sure everybody has missed us, but we're back with a brand new, hot and fresh Hero Report podcast. How are you?
I am well, thanks. It's been an eventful month, I think.
Yeah, that's for sure. You, in particular, have been hard at work. You're planning, you're putting the final touches, the finishing touches, I guess I should say, on the Hero Roundtable first annual conference, which takes place this weekend up in the Flint, Michigan area.
It does. Yeah, definitely the final touches. No more planning involved at this point. But yeah, lots of frantic phone calls about coffee and limousines and lack thereof. So it's getting exciting. It's a lot of people that I've talked to individually all going to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This will be our first time meeting up in person to talk about heroism, rather than the many years now of virtual discussion. And I think if you want, maybe do just a quick rundown of some of the impressive personages who are planning to be there, and because I think it really is a pretty impressive group.
Sure. Well, there'll be you opening things up, discussing what I guess you can tell us in a minute what you're going to be discussing. But well, I guess you're not actually opening. Mike Dilbeck from the Responsibility Project will be opening. So we have Phil Zimbardo closing things down on Sunday. He'll also be part of the psychology roundtable, I suppose, that you're facilitating on Saturday afternoon. Got a lot of people from different hero organizations, like Anne Medlock from Giraffe Heroes, Drew Jacob, our often guest, that's not the right word, frequent guest, will be there as well. Scott Allison, who's been on here a few times, who does his research on heroism. Jensen Kyle, again, who we've had on the show before from Moral Heroes, he'll be there as well. And then there's guests from all sorts of different backgrounds as well, from education, like Christian Long and Betty Ray. We have Nolan Harrison, ex-NFL player. Zach Malamed, who's headed up Student Voice, encouraging young people to use their voice. Yeah, lots and lots of people. So there's going to be something for everyone, I think, without being too much of an exaggeration at all.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you've built quite an audience already for all of these speakers.
Yeah, we'll have over 400 people in the seats, so I'm pretty happy about that. There shouldn't be too many gaps in the venue. There's 600-ish seats. And there was an event there last night with 250 people, and apparently it felt fairly full. So I'm hoping 400 people makes it seem jam-packed. Yeah,
I'm very excited. I mean, I don't know that I've spoken to 400 people before, and so that'll be interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to really take advantage of those numbers and sort of come up with a presentation that's both engaging and also academic, which is a little bit of a challenge for me. So I'm spending the next few days really just sort of working on that and trying to come up with a good answer for myself about how this is going to work. One question I had for you, and that maybe people who watch this or listen to this would be interested in knowing, is whether any of this is going to be recorded, broadcast, streamed, available for download, etc.
Yeah, all of those things. It'll be live streamed is the plan. That's one of the things that keeps me up at night. But all the equipment is there to be live streaming the event, so that'll be on the main website, heroroundtable.com. We'll be recording all the talks with multiple cameras to put into a DVD, and also post the talks, individual talks, online. That'll take some processing time after the event for that to go up. And we'll be posting photos all day. Again, that'll be on the heroroundtable.com website. So there's plenty of opportunity if you can't make it to see what's going on, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, given what sounds like the sort of what should I say, pre-success of what you're doing, what I assume will be success. I think all of that is a good advertisement for people to come to the next one. After all, if you can't make it this year, since it is just this weekend, so you can start making your plans for next time. I think we'll probably see some of the same people, but I suspect that you'll also, after the success of this event, you'll be able to sort of broaden out your search for people who will want to come and give a talk or participate in some way.
Yeah, we've got 6 or 7 people lined up to speak next year already. They couldn't make it this year and want to, so that's a really great head start. And like you said, I think there'll be some legitimacy after having it this year. People will see that it's a real thing, and I think that's going to be a local phenomenon as well as more broadly.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited, Matt, and I know you've put a ton of hard work into it, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what a success it'll be, and I thank you for your heroic hard work in making this happen. That there's no doubt that at least part of my talk is designed to make people upset that I'm sort of I'm going to be very specific about what kind of heroism I'm talking about and so on. So if people who watch or pay attention to the Hero Report or to my blog, I think I won't be surprised. But I think hopefully it will open up a good conversation for the day, for the weekend.
Right. Well, that's why I put you up there first for some controversy.
Good. Well, perfect.
If people are wanting to watch Ari live, he's on at 9:40. Approximately on Saturday.
Eastern Daylight Time.
Eastern Time, yeah.
Terrific. Well, we can obviously we'll return to this topic. We'll process the Hero Report when we come back from it. Maybe we'll see how things go. Maybe we'll even get in a live Hero Report where you and I will be live and in person. That would be kind of fun. I don't know if we'll have time for it given how stacked up things are, but we can sort of see how things go.
We could certainly do some kind of interview series throughout the weekend.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. Even if we just sort of were walking around with an iPhone,
right.
Sort of talking to people about their impressions, and then we just kind of splice that together. I think that'd be a good idea.
Yep.
But I did want to talk for just a few minutes before we go, because as I say, I have to go and work on my lecture for Saturday morning. Not like I'm saving it to the last minute or anything. It is Tuesday, after all.
No, I wouldn't be working on it by now.
Yeah. So, one of the things I thought we could talk about was just a kind of a quick look at all of the hero discussion that has been in the news since we were last here together. We'll certainly miss a lot of it, but there has been a fair amount of things that have obviously piqued our interest. One thing, this I guess is in keeping with what I am planning, I guess, to talk a little bit about on Saturday, is this What Counts as a Hero. And a friend of mine posted on Facebook, on my Facebook wall, a story about a bus driver who stopped a bus and got off the bus and talked a woman, or maybe it was a woman, I don't remember, talked someone down who was planning to commit suicide, maybe jumping off a bridge, if I'm remembering this correctly. And the interesting question of the person who posted it to me was, this isn't perhaps heroic, but do we have a word for something like this, right? And maybe that's why we have all these problems with people saying hero about everything, because we don't have a good word for someone who does something that's particularly noteworthy and good. Yeah. So I wanted to maybe talk about that for just a minute and see what you thought. I think there's something really interesting about that. I don't know what you would say, because obviously it's not heroic, right? There's no risk. There's no real danger. But it is, to use your own sort of definitions here, it is the opposite of being a bystander, right? And sometimes I think you say, that the opposite of being a bystander is connected with heroism, yeah? So I want to think a little bit with you about what we would say about such a person.
Yeah, usually I say it in the reverse, that the opposite of a hero is not a villain, it's a bystander.
Right. Okay, so it doesn't go both ways.
Obviously not necessarily. I think, and keep in mind that's a tagline to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Not a deep philosophical thought necessarily. I didn't read the story because it was sent to me as well, and it didn't strike me as being very heroic. But now that you're mentioning it, I don't know if there was any risk involved with the driver maybe being pulled off the bridge as well. I just don't know if they just talked them down or physically got involved. So that could be heroic. But like you say, there's that important first step of doing something. So that when I talk about heroism, I have three parts to the definition. The first is to do something, which this person clearly did. The second is to do it for somebody else. And the third is you're doing it despite a risk or sacrifice. So the first two count, and they're very important, but to get the title of hero, I think there's that last piece as well, which isn't always the case. As for a word to describe it, I think that's an interesting point too. Is it altruism? Is it a good citizen? There's definitely something there that they're outwardly focused. They're focusing on someone else and doing something for someone else who needs it.
That's right. It's very empathetic behavior, right? It's the kind of pro-social behavior we want to encourage, but I think it goes too far to go beyond that. And the fact that we don't have a neat word for that, I think, sort of bothers people, or maybe it's what leads people to say, well, then it's a hero.
Right.
And I talked about this, I don't know if you remember, in a blog post a while ago about the distinction between someone who's your role model or someone who you admire very much and someone who's your hero, right? That I wanted to get to a point where people would stop saying, like, my friend or my mom is my hero, instead to say my role model or a person I look up to or admire, someone I'd like to be like. Just because it makes the terms cleaner, right? But there we do have a term. Yeah, role model is a term. It's just people don't feel like it's strong enough.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. That everyone's looking for the best possible word to describe someone to make sure that because I noticed early on coming to America, and I just may have missed it when I was in Australia, but everyone seemed to have a lot of best friends. They didn't have many just friends, they were best friends, and there were lots of best friends. And that always just amused me, because best signifies one, right?
Yeah.
It's your best friend, not one of your great friends, but your best friend.
That's right. And we seem to have this problem a lot, right? If you've noticed, we now have a new definition of the word literally, right?
Yeah,
which means now not literally.
Right.
We tend to do this because we want to add emphasis.
Right.
And I mean, in part, as I say, this will be the beginning, the lead-in of my 12-minute talk or whatever. I think that it's possible to talk about things that you care about or that are very meaningful to you without going overboard in terms of emphasis, right? You can care very much about something, you can be very impressed with someone or whatever, without that person being the best or your hero. Yeah? And I think that we do better if we save these words to have them talk about the things they actually describe. I think that we carve out a space for these words so that we can use them to call people to do this really sort of specific, really unique thing, and I think we're better off in some sense if we're able to maintain a clear separation, if you will, between things we like a lot and things that are unique, the best.
Yeah, and it is a very common thing that happens. I remember in the late 80s there were 6 or 7 supermodels and everyone else was a model, and now everyone's a supermodel. And we do it all the time. Superstar sports players, every team's got a superstar now. And it's tough to go back because then you're worrying about discrediting somebody who is doing great.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. Was there? I'm gonna have to do research on this for Saturday. Wasn't there a time in baseball where not every team had an all-star?
You're talking to the wrong person about baseball.
Wasn't there a time in cricket when when not every batsman was? I don't know what the
No, you're right. I remember when I first started watching the NFL, it was early 90s, and there were only a few superstar players, and now there's got to be someone every weekend. There's stories. ESPN has to fill 24 hours of news coverage. I could probably still tell you the 10 top players of the NFL in '92, or there were only a few of them. There were only a few household names.
So the problem really is kind of twofold, right? On the one hand, we don't have a good term sometimes for someone who's good at something or who does something that we want to reward, but who isn't the best or who doesn't fit the particular definition. Right. So we just chuck out the definition, and then on the other hand, there's this kind of looseness when it comes to our use of hyperbole.
Right.
And yeah, so I better write that down or else play this back because that's definitely going to be in my talk.
Well, there's another news story that I think will be an interesting point or counterpoint or exploratory point here for us is that of Chris Oswald, who in a local Walmart, like it's 10 minutes away from me, he was on the night shift at 2 o'clock in the morning, out for his lunch break, standing outside, or sitting in his car outside, and saw a car driving through the parking lot with someone on the front, and it was braking and accelerating, trying to get that person off. And it turns out, as it got closer to him, it was a girl on the hood and a guy in the car. He got out of his car straight away to go and help, and said to the girl, "Do you need help?" And she said yes. And he went to address the guy in the car, who then got physical with him, and ended up two other guys came in and just beat him before running away when the rest of the people on lunch break finally came over to help. So, he's been, I think, correctly lauded as a hero in the press. He's got attention all across the world for this because Walmart fired him, almost immediately for breaking policy. Now, in his situation, do you think, if he had not been hurt when he went over there, is he still a hero? Is the risk inherent because there was a domestic abuse?
Yes, I think unquestionably, right? In the suicide case, someone who is suicidal doesn't have any. I mean, that person's not going to. I don't know, but it seems to me that someone who's suicidal doesn't have any intent to harm someone else, right?
Yeah.
What you risk in that case is not succeeding in preventing the person from hurting him or herself. In this case, there's a clear altercation in progress, right? And inserting yourself into a situation where violence is already on the table one person against another opens you up as a target for violence. And so I think there's a very different risk assessment there.
Yeah, right. Right, that's exactly right. So Tim's going to be at the done. Tim's going to be at the Hero Round Table.
Good.
So he's looking forward to that, to seeing what people have got to say, because you can imagine he's been overwhelmed with thinking about what is heroic and what he could have done, or what he could have done more, or what he shouldn't have done, or all that kind of stuff. So it'll be really interesting to talk to him sort of Saturday night or Sunday afternoon to see what his thoughts are.
Sure, without a doubt. Yeah, I think that's great. You have a number of real life heroes, right? Not just people who talk about heroism, but you have a number of people who actually have put themselves in harm's way, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, one is not going to make it because he had a work thing come up. Was Chad Lindsay, who was a Subway hero that we've talked about, and then we've got two high school students, Ethan King, who's been on the show before, and Jeremiah Anthony, who we've tried to get on the show before but had Google Plus technical difficulties.
Yep.
They're both, I think, examples of people seeing the power that they have and taking action. And we've talked about them before in regards to sacrifice, being a 10-year-old, what sacrifice means, or being a 15-year-old, the risk of social exclusion, that sort of thing. So not so much the physical risk for those guys, but definitely there's something there.
Yeah, and you know what, Matt, that social risk, that social exclusion point, I guess, brings us to our last news item for today, and that is, of course, the stories out of the NFL about bullying, and in particular, this was in the Miami Dolphins locker room, I guess, where Richie Incognito has been suspended for sending threatening and harassing and racially charged text messages to a younger player, a rookie, Jonathan Martin, right? And the idea of social exclusion, or what's acceptable in your organization or your peer group or whatever, is really up for discussion here with this case, because it's just one of a widespread hazing issue that faces the NFL, and that isn't anything new.
Right. Well, right, and it reminds me of Zimbardo's bad barrels idea that the NFL is a bad barrel, and it's going to create bad apples. And obviously, saying that everyone in the NFL is like this is insane, but there's clearly a cultural reality there that, and maybe it's some teams, maybe it's all teams, who knows, but the idea of hazing rookies, the idea of being tough. I think you sent me the USA Today article. No. I sent you the article in The Nation by Dave Zirin, where he was talking about the first reaction of this Martin guy coming out about this was that he was weak and should have gone through the right channels and should have been a man and taken it up with his bully himself, which is such common treatment of people complaining about bullying, is that they're not tough enough. But as soon as the public got angry about it, they completely changed their attitude to it. The guy's been suspended, and it's, oh, how could this possibly happen in the NFL, and they're an upstanding organization. And the NFL clearly does a lot of good stuff. We talked to Nolan Harrison on the show before, and he backed that up. But clearly there's problems in the locker room that extends down into middle school, right? Just in sports in general. And the article you sent was talking about how Incognito had that reputation at Nebraska.
Yeah, right. And in fact that he didn't he didn't finish out his time at Nebraska, right? And it seems like from what I can sort of gather about this guy, everywhere he's gone, every organization, every team, he's had these all sorts of problems with coaching staff, with other players. He has kind of a reputation. The interesting thing is that a sport like football, there's a fine line, right, where having that kind of tough sort of borderline abusive kind of personality is something that might be cultivated on the field, right? But off the field, they want you to switch that off, or at least not to do it in a way that's public or whatever. And I think that there's a real challenge there for a sport, especially a sport like football, where you're training guys from the earliest to effectively attack one another, but you have to teach them the right time to attack and which people to attack, right? Not your own teammates and only on the field and only after one whistle blows but before another whistle blows. It's a very tough challenge, I think, to build people who do exactly the right kind of violence at the prescribed times. But this issue of hazing is not simply an NFL problem, right? I mean, it's a huge problem, in the culture, and I mean, obviously, we're now more attentive to it than I think we have been in the past. There are, all sorts of people whose careers are made around anti-bullying efforts and anti-bullying training and all this sort of thing. So we're more sensitive to it, I think. But you still do see, as you said, right, the initial response, especially for tough guys, right, is that if someone bullies you, you just knock them down, right? That's what you're supposed to do. This is long-standing advice, right? That you should, if you stand up to your bully will in fact prove to be cowardly. Yeah.
Right.
So it's interesting to see that even after all of the time and resources that have been poured into anti-bullying and anti-hazing measures over the past 5 years, maybe even a decade now, we still have that initial reaction that certainly people had, decades ago.
Yeah, and any kid, when I talk to kids about standing up to people that are bullying, they know the reality is that you could get beaten up. I mean, especially if you're the person who's getting targeted, standing up to the bully or trying to fight the bully. I mean, I think it said in one of those articles we were reading, what do you expect to happen when you go up against a 300-pound aggressive, angry guy? You're going to get beaten up, and you might be seriously injured. So the smart thing is to walk away from that and to tell people this guy needs to stop doing this. And it wasn't the first time that somebody had that left a club because of this guy.
Yeah, at Nebraska, right? He targeted a walk-on player, and it was the same thing happened, right? He was knocking him around in the practice, and the guy just picked up his gear and walked off the field.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the question we should be asking on a Hero podcast is why aren't people standing up? People have clearly seen this behavior, especially as he's been kicked out of team after team. Why aren't the senior players standing up? Why isn't somebody putting this guy back in his place? It's easier not to, obviously. So
yeah, that's exactly the right issue, right, for us. The issue is not about the bully or the person being bullied. The real issue is about all of the other people who are standing around with knowledge of it, right? It's the bystanders, and then those are the people who risk, the social isolation, or they risk drawing the ire of the bully, right? Turning that focus of the bully onto themselves. And these are all people who are quoted in the article, right, that we've read. These are all people who say, oh yeah, we know about his antics. We just tell people to stay away from him, and so on and so forth. So the response is not to do something about it themselves, but to simply, walk, look the other way, shake your head, and hope that the guy moves on.
Yeah, this guy needed an ally. He needed someone to be in his corner, and that clearly wasn't happening. For him to walk out on a club, which is his career, there's clearly no one was standing up for him.
Right. Yeah. I think
risks.
Yeah, I think that's and that's the thing that you have to think about how you build up, amongst all of the other players, because. There's two ways to think about this too, right? It's not simply that that all of the other players are not stepping up, but a lot of them are either tacitly or explicitly participating.
Right.
There's this long-standing practice of the rookies having to, pay for these extravagant meals for the veterans. The veterans all benefit from this hazing.
Yeah.
Or a substantial portion of them do, and I think that makes this more than simply a one guy does the bullying and all the other guys stand around and are bystanders, right? There's at least a tacit acceptance of it, or even a participation in it.
Yeah, absolutely right. I was listening to Phil Zimbardo on a podcast yesterday, and he quoted, and I don't know where he got the number from, but 10% of people in the workforce are bullied, and they're often their reaction is to just leave the job. They put up with it and put up with it and put up with it, and then they quit. And there's a growing awareness of bullying amongst adults. I think you've said kid bullying has been all over the press, but there's this lack of interest in addressing it in adults, because it does happen all the time. There are people, and I think Phil said this yesterday too, that those kids that are bullying and are successful in it at school, obviously they're going to continue that through their adult life. If
Right.
It's a successful method for becoming popular, which it is, that's what they're going to continue doing, because they have that positive affirmation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So let's leave it there. We'll see what we can magic from this weekend as far as another episode. We'll see what we can do. Maybe we can broadcast live from the after party, or work something out on our iPhones to do something.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday. I think it'll be it'll be a real adventure. And now all I have to do is figure out what I'm going to talk about.
Yep, that's good. I'd probably be doing it on Friday night. In fact, I've got lots of points during the weekend that I have to say something, and I'm putting off working out what that something is going to be for each one.
Right. Well, you know me. I have two small children, and it's the brand new daylight saving time. So Friday night I will be sleeping, which is something I haven't done in a very long time. So that when 8 o'clock in the morning rolls around on Saturday, I'm really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go.
Right. All right. Well, we'll leave it there, and look forward to seeing you on Friday. And hopefully some of the viewers will watch the live stream or be there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for watching and listening, everyone. And Matt, thank you. I will see you soon. I hope you've got the good weather queued up for us there in Flint.
It looks okay.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.